of Women of Color in Cannabis, to give you guys a little background into National Expungement Week, and then I'll let you guys know why it was so important for us as Women of Color in Cannabis to align with this organization. So, Patricia, take it away.
So hi everyone, my name is Pat, and as Lo said, I am the co-founder of Women of Color in Cannabis. We are really grateful to be working with the National Expungement Week team this year to put this on. National Expungement Week is the organization is a year-round organization. This week, though, is the week of action where we let the community know about all of the grassroots organizations that are out there doing this work. You know, this is just really just highlighting that, but this work takes place year round. And today we're just putting this on so that we can advise our community here in Brooklyn and in New York about what's happening, what's going on with the sealing. We've been working with the National Expungement Week team since March of this year to put this stuff together. And we're really grateful for all of the resources that they have provided and just all of the education and information that we've been able to gather in this time. I want to say thank you so much to Jason for what you're doing, for your commitment to the National Expungement Week organization, and just to Woke and what you're going to be doing for our community after this event. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah. So we are Women of Color in Cannabis, so that's Woke, W-O-C-C, pronounced Woke as in W-O-K-E. And because we're an informational-based organization and we put on events year-round, when we found out about National Expungement Week and their work, we kind of felt like this is the place we had to be. Now, National Expungement Week is not cannabis-specific, even though our organization is. So what we wanted to do was not only provide information on the expungement/sealing process, you'll understand why I did that, hopefully by the end of this talk, but we wanted to not only discuss your random, stops and searches, but we also wanted to discuss marijuana as well. But it was very important to us that everyone knows that National Expungement Week exists, and that it's not cannabis specific, so if there's anything on your criminal record, this is a place to come to find out your information. Like Pat said, there are so many other organizations doing the work, but we wanted to use our network to really make sure that the people of Brooklyn were educated as specifically as they could be. So we're going to provide some very local, borough-specific information, but there's also, and most of the information is New York specific. So once again, like Pat said, we want to thank Jason, and this is, if you don't mind, Jason, giving us a little background into yourself and your work and kind of how you got here today.
Sure.
And you can kick off whenever you're ready.
That's way too serious of a picture. I don't like it. My name's Jason. I'm a former prosecutor in Brooklyn, which I started right out of law school in about 2015. Did that for almost 4 years. And then somewhat recently, although it feels like a long time, started working as a defense attorney, take cases, primarily in New York City, but all over the place, upstate, Long Island, and in even more dramatic circumstances, out of state. Been doing that for probably just about 1.5 years now. Every day is interesting, and, handle cases from, low-level drug possession to serious homicides and other things. But what I've learned is that each case is important to each person. It's the biggest day of their life and big moments for people to be caught up in this system. So, it doesn't matter what the person's charged with or what they're paying me. I take to heart and take just as serious, the matter, regardless of what the case is. So that's just a little quick background on myself and kind of what I do every day.
So for everyone's clarity, we're going to focus on a lot of things, but we're going to teach you guys the difference between what is a criminal record. We're going to go really basic. How do you even get a criminal record? Then we're going to go into what a rap sheet is, who can access your rap sheet, the differences in a violation as opposed to something, an actual criminal or an arrest that's going to stay on your record, whether it's an actual charge, a misdemeanor, a felony, how do they scale felonies. We're going to give you a lot of information, but we're going to make sure also that we really do touch on cannabis. Like we said before, National Expungement Week is not cannabis specific, but we are. So we asked Jason, in addition to giving you guys some high level, top blanket information, we're going to discuss different types of cannabis convictions. We're going to talk about the process from getting those removed off of your record. And we're also going to give you guys some situational advice. So what we asked for Jason to do is walk us through what to do in the event that you're stopped. Let's say you have maybe a broken taillight. Let's say you got stopped walking down the street, if you had like exposed or what they thought was an exposed joint. So we also wanted to make sure that we give you some advice that you can kind of leave here with, and you may not have a criminal record maybe because of or yet at this time, but let's hope with this advice you never get a criminal record, because we'll teach you some things to do if you ever find yourself in a situation. So with that being said, Jason, feel free to take it away.
Okay. What is a criminal record? I mean, that's the easy one. It's what it sounds like. If you've been arrested before, certain things may remain on your record for certain amounts of time. I guess the easiest, I'll follow the slides, but the highest level of a state crime in New York is a felony. So if you've been arrested and you've been convicted of a felony, that could be gun possession, that could be high level sexual assaults, that could be homicides, grand larcenies. Those are felonies. They stay on your record forever, and you cannot have them sealed. So that's the main thing to know about felonies. There's no sealing at all. Misdemeanors are a step down. Simple assaults, petit larceny, various amounts of drug possession, a bunch of other things. Misdemeanors can be sealed. However, you need to wait 10 years from the day that you're convicted for your misdemeanor to be sealed. There's A misdemeanors, there's B misdemeanors. There's really not much of a difference between those two. They're on your record. They show up as a crime. And in 10 years, you can typically have those sealed off of your record. How to access your rap sheet. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, you have to go down to the courthouse, and even the best lawyer in the world and anyone else will tell you that you're going to be dealing with bureaucracies, and you're going to be dealing with people that are just kind of slow and a little bit lazy, and it's going to be frustrating anytime that you have to go to the courthouse or deal with the government in Albany, which I'll talk about with certificates of relief and other things. It's just a very slow process to get very basic things, and it's unfortunate, but that is a lot of the justice system in general, and it extends to, these people are obviously nice and they're helpful, but you got to go down. You might get the runaround a little bit. They might be unclear about what you need to bring, an ID or $10 to get your certificate of disposition. But yes, you have to go to the courthouse where you're convicted, and you'll go to the main clerk's office and you'll ask them for what you want. Certificate of disposition will show exactly what you've been convicted of, what date you've been convicted of it, and what's on your record right now. Yeah, so that's straightforward, and that's the contact information for the entire OCA, Office of Court Administration. They, I think it's the entire state, not just New York City, that the OCA runs, and they'll help you do your criminal history record search. And again, if you have an open case, your attorney will be able to access your record right away. It's part of kind of the discovery file that they'll have. If you don't have an open case, you need to go through this procedure. A regular attorney like myself, we don't have privileges to run your background checks, unfortunately. Prosecutors do. They have that power too, but we as private attorneys don't have that power anymore. So we have to do the same exact runaround as well. Unless you have an open case, then your rap sheet will be included in the file. And when I say rap sheet, I mean criminal history.
So I'm just going to pause on this slide for a little bit because this is the Brooklyn specific information. We will provide this PowerPoint to you all in a link, but if you just want to jot it down really quickly, no problem. I'm just going to pause on that for a few minutes, but you will have this presentation or have access to the presentation. So.
And I would generally start at the 320 J Street. That's the Supreme Court, and there's felony records there. 120 Scammahorn is for misdemeanors. They're a little bit unorganized in terms of where exactly you might find the best information. 320 actually controls and has some older files, even if they're misdemeanors. They're generally going to cover a lot of material and records for you. So you probably want to start there. Okay, convictions versus non-convictions. Okay, so if you're convicted of a crime, again, that could be a jury convicting you, like you see on TV when they come back and they say you're guilty, or it could even just be a guilty plea. That's a conviction. The prosecutor offers you a plea deal. You accept that plea deal on the record. The judge convicts you of whatever the plea deal entails. An acquittal is merely a jury finding you not guilty. An acquittal is not having a case dismissed before a trial. Acquittal is it goes all the way to a jury trial or a bench trial with just a judge, and they come back and they say you're not guilty. That's an acquittal. And again, a dismissal is the case being a dismissal can encompass an acquittal. After you're acquitted, technically your case is also dismissed, and the judge will say that. But a dismissal also covers pretrial, a prosecutor dismissing your case, the judge dismissing your case because you want a motion or a hearing. So that's what a dismissal is.
Jason, I have a quick question. So I am well, let me not say very familiar with the court system. I've had my experiences. What is an ACD and where does it fall amongst these three?
Yeah, that's an important question. A lot of people ask me that. So an ACD it's a dismissal. It's called an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal. So what it means is that if you accept it tomorrow, if you accepted an ACD, that means in 6 months your case would be dismissed. It's not tomorrow, it's in 6 months. So for 6 months, you're going to have an open arrest. You're technically going to have an open case, but automatically in 6 months, you don't have to go back to court. You don't have to get a note from the prosecutor. You don't have to get anything. It's automatically dismissed. And I tell a lot of my clients, some people think that it means that they're admitting to some sort of culpability, even though it's a great result. And I say, it's really not. You're not putting anything on the record. You're not admitting to any guilt. You're not doing anything really. And a lot of this is business decisions. I say, look, we can get your case outright dismissed. It's probably going to take us 6 months of coming back in court to do so. So if you're okay with taking the ACD today, take it, and your case will be dismissed in 6 months. It's kind of an easy resolution. It makes prosecutors feel happy because they feel like they accomplished something as opposed to just outright dismissing the case. So that's what an ACD is.
Jason, when you get that ACD, does that still appear on your criminal record though?
It only appears for 6 months while it's an open case. So if you're stopped by a cop within those 6 months, they'll see that you have an open arrest and an open case. After the 6 months, it'll be purely dismissed as any other case would be, and it's not going to show up on your record.
Are there exceptions to the rule?
No, there's no exceptions. The one thing I'll just cover quickly is that technically, if you're arrested within the 6 months while your ACD is open, they can take back the ACD and just reopen that case against you. It never happens. I have granted a gazillion ACDs when I was a prosecutor. I've accepted some as a defense attorney. I've never seen someone get rearrested. It doesn't matter if it's a homicide that you're rearrested on. Very rarely, if ever, does a court or a prosecutor elect to reopen the ACD. So people get caught up on that and they say, oh, I can't get in trouble. I can't get arrested for 6 months. Well, you shouldn't anyways. Obviously, you shouldn't think like that. But yes, if you do and it's out of your control, you don't have to worry, I say, because it just doesn't happen. So that's kind of a technicality.
Okay, and then what if you are picked up as a part of a sweep?
Well, what do you mean exactly?
So if you're picked up as a part of a sweep and does that remain on your criminal record? Because it's as a group? Yeah.
You mean like if a bunch of people are arrested together?
Right, exactly. Is it all dismissed, or can you, let me go. So I was arrested as a part of a sweep and was told that within a year that I took the ACD, within a year that would be cleared from the record. That
Okay.
was not the case.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking if there was an exception to the rule.
Not from what I've heard of, and that's a interesting circumstance. I would have to, I guess, understand more, and just perhaps your ACD was not.
It was a cannabis-related deal, arrest. Thank you.
And a prosecutor offered you that, and you accepted it on a record?
Yeah.
In the court?
Yeah.
Well, what I can say, I mean, I can say that the ACD, if that happened, and then 3 years later you were arrested on something, and they ran your background check, the government is able to see that you were given an ACD. The government, we'll talk about this a bit in background checks. There's different background checks for government officials, especially prosecutors and police, than regular people. They get to see cases where you were arrested and the case was dismissed later. They get to see ACDs. They get to see your whole arrest history. So that may be kind of that situation, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. Felonies versus misdemeanors, distinction of contents. Class, we talked about that a little bit in terms of the severity. So it goes from A felony or A1 down to E felony, A, B, C, D, E. There's a million crimes in the penal law that kind of fall within that. And then after that, you have your A misdemeanor, you have your B misdemeanor, you have your violation, then you have your ACD, and then you have a dismissal. So what's probably pertinent for today, and a lot of cases that I come across, are violations versus, ACDs versus misdemeanors. A violation is exactly what's on here. It's not a crime, but it is on your record for 2 years. It's under what's called Penal Law 24020. So a violation could be anything from, jaywalking, harassment, disorderly conduct. It's a good result to make sure that you don't have any sort of conviction in terms of a misdemeanor on your record. You don't need to get it sealed because it's off your record in 2 years. And that's the benefit of a violation.
So part of the work with National.
Can you repeat that like last thing about if you get a violation, something that is gone in 2 years automatically? Can you just repeat that for us, Jason?
Your violation is automatically sealed in 2 years. It's gone off of your record, and even in the 2 years that it's on there, it's not a crime. It's a violation. It's not deemed a crime. It's a lower level offense.
So part of the importance of National Expungement Week is there's a lot of barriers that one can be presented with if they have a criminal record. Patricia, remind me, what is it, like 60? You're on mute, babe.
Okay, sorry guys. There are 48,000 barriers when you have a criminal record.
And when we say barriers, we mean to getting a loan, maybe, to moving into that apartment that you might want to get that job that you applied for. So we wanted to just touch base on that a little bit because we feel like it's very important. And as we continue to do the work, and as National Expungement Week continues to do the work year round, we're really asking for you to spread the message and let them know about these local communities, because it can impact people that we know if they do have a criminal record. So like we said, employment barriers. And we're going to talk about who can see what, as Jason mentioned. But if you unfortunately have a misdemeanor on your record, or you have some kind of lasting or actual criminal record, so it's not a violation and it's not an ACD, that can prevent you from getting a job. There's loss of rights. So in the instances of felonies, you may lose your right to vote for an extended period of time or completely. Now, I'm not sure if anyone's a hunter or if they're into hunting, but maybe you're into fishing, and some charges may prevent you from getting a hunting and a fishing license. If you're interested in having a gun license, depending on, once again, the felony charge that you may have on your record, you may not be able to do so. So when we say that there are impediments to life and quality of life, we really do mean so. And we want you to reach out and to spread the word that National Expungement Week is happening. We're doing the work year round, and it's worthwhile to go through the process. As daunting as it can seem, as Jason mentioned, the process dredging by, it is important to get what you can removed off of your record. So Jason, let's talk about who can see what.
Yeah, so that's important. So non-government entities, again, exactly what's up there. Colleges, a lot of employers, various other people that conduct background checks. They can't see a case that is sealed. And again, I'll review very quickly. Felonies can never be sealed. Misdemeanors can be sealed after 10 years. Violations are sealed automatically after 2 years. So a college won't see it if it's sealed. A private employer won't see it if it's sealed, but they will see your felony. Government entities, TSA background check. If you're arrested by a cop again, a prosecutor, FBI, you're applying to the Department of Education, you're applying to the MTA, a lot of things in New York City, obviously. They can see cases that would typically be sealed from other background checks. That will come up. They have those rights because, they consider their job description to encompass things that, might be hampered by you having a criminal record in their eyes. So they're able to see those things. And again, most importantly is kind of what I think Patricia was asking on, is that prosecutors and law enforcement, they'll see your past arrest. That case can end in a dismissal the next day. That case can end in an ACD where it's automatically dismissed in 6 months or a year. They're still going to see it. And people have asked me, and I think one guy even hired me one time, and I encouraged him not to. He was asking me, can you do anything with the NYPD to get my arrest off of my record from them? Because I think he was a dentist that was, a lot of his clients were NYPD. And I think he was like seeing a loss of business or something after he was arrested and it was dismissed. And you really just can't. I mean, I wrote letters to NYPD legal, again, dealing with bureaucracies. We even had some connections like pretty high up towards the police chief, and it just wasn't happening. So that's unfortunate, and they'll see that. But the idea is that only they'll be able to see it, and only they should be able to see it for what it's worth. And it might affect maybe their plea deal on a different case. If you've had 30 open arrests or 30 past arrests and they ended in, dismissals, they kind of view things differently. But that's the one little hiccup with sealing, is that it's not going to cover that.
So now we're going to take our journey into like what we're all here for, which is introduction to expungement. So this is where we're going to find out the difference between sealing and expungement. What can we actually get expunged? Do we do expungement in New York City? So this is where we get into like the nitty gritty, one would say.
Yeah, so expungement it's beyond a sealing. A sealing, the case is still there. It's just obviously sealed from certain people. And expungement means it never existed. You can even walk into an interview and say, no, this case never existed. This is, it fully takes it out. That being said, New York doesn't have expungement for anything except kind of these automatic marijuana cases, which we'll talk about, which have taken place. But many other states do, and I get calls very frequently about expungement, and I have the same answer for everyone, and it's unfortunate, but there's just no expungement in New York. State crimes, misdemeanors, federal crimes, it just doesn't matter. Maybe it'll change one day. I wish it would, because you guys obviously know about the barriers and have talked about the barriers. And sealing only goes so far. I mean, there's even private employers, obviously, that, go above and beyond, whether they have a private investigator, whether they have some sort of FBI level background check. And, I've had people call me and say, hey, my private employer actually saw a case that was sealed. What's the deal? And I can't answer that straightforward, because they're doing their due diligence too. And if they have the proper background check, they can see it. So expungement would make everyone's life much less stressful in that realm, but it doesn't exist, unfortunately. Not in New York. Okay, so yes, we talked about the ceiling once more. So there are a few fine points, and it's right there is that if you have 4 or 5 misdemeanors, you can't get your misdemeanor sealed. If you have 1 felony and 1 misdemeanor, it's the same. Well, 1 felony, 1 misdemeanor, you can, but if you have the multiple convictions, you're not able to get your case sealed, unfortunately. So they only, allow for it if it's your first misdemeanor or second misdemeanor, but after that, they kind of crack down on you. And again, the 10-year thing, which we talked about as well, and exactly 2 convictions or less on your criminal record. And that's a good point at the bottom as well. Again, there's all these carve-outs. DUIs is one. DUIs are misdemeanors for the most part, or violations, and they cannot be sealed. DUIs are a different sort of concept because there's a lot of repeat offenders, unfortunately, and your plea possibilities and the level of your future DUIs can kind of be bumped up off your past one, so they don't allow sealing there. They can't be taken off of your record for whatever reason it may be, that being part of it. And obviously felonies as well, homicides, sex crimes, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Yeah, so it's a motion and an application that goes into the court that you were convicted in. I don't know if anyone, I don't think that you can do it without an attorney because it is a motion to a court. So an attorney will typically do the motion for you. It involves some case law. It involves some statute. It involves some character letters. It's kind of a basic overview. And look, if you fall within those parameters that were on the last couple slides, then typically it's granted for you.
And can you speak to that last sentence? So sealing applications usually granted within a few months.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, yes. I've seen these things take 6 months. I've seen them take a year. With COVID, I've seen them take a year for sure. It's just the way it goes. So, yeah, I mean, it's safe to say at least 3 months, but obviously it could be beyond that.
And we really want to drive that point to everyone who's joining us today, because I know when Pat and I started this journey, that was the big question that we often got. How long is this process? How long is this process? And I think a lot of our community members kind of have the idea that it's like an overnight process, that you acquire an attorney, they put this paperwork in, and then the next day you should be good to go. And we really want people to understand that it's not an overnight process, that it will take time. And especially now, due to COVID, like Jason said, what could have been a 3-month process can now very well be 6 months or even a full 12 or 13-month cycle. So we just want everyone to have realistic expectations for themselves, for the attorneys, for Jason, for anyone that you're working with, that it's not going to be an overnight process, and to not get discouraged because it's not turning over as quickly as you want it to. So once again, just really reinforcing that it's going to take some time, and do not give up. So this slide specifically, Jason did tell us a little bit about the offenses that you can't have removed. So let's say you were wild in your 20s, you had a string of DUIs, they're not going anywhere, but now you're 45, you don't even drink anymore. What does that mean for you, Jason?
Yeah, so you can get what's called a certificate of relief from disabilities or a certificate of good conduct. They're essentially the same thing. They don't require a motion to a court. It's actually an application that goes up to Albany, and it can be done without an attorney. I've seen people do it successfully without an attorney. And again, in 6 months or a year, if you qualify, you get back one of these certificates. And what does it do for you? I mean, I've had mixed reviews, but technically it's something that's helpful to bring to an employer. It shows that you took the extra step, and there's some language within the certificate that says a government entity has deemed this person XYZ, and it kind of puts you in a good light. Says that the employer should not consider your offenses against you, that you've submitted these character letters, that it's kind of just a basic overview. You're a good citizen, you've paid your debt to society, yada yada, a bunch of buzzwords. And It does help in a sense. I've had some good feedback that people have brought it with them. And first off, it shows you took the extra step. And it does say that, you know, a government agency has found you to qualify for XYZ. So it's not a ceiling. It's not from a court. It's not a court order. But it does help. It helps for prospective employers, I think.
And it's an alternative that could be worthwhile. You never know until you try it. So it was important for us to let you guys know that there is some options. Like we said, if it is a felony or something that can be removed, but you have been a quote unquote good person ever since, and it's been quite some time that you're finding those consistent barriers that we spoke about, this is a viable option that's worth pursuing. So why not try it out?
Yeah.
Also, Jason, is there a filing fee for this?
If it is, it's a couple $100. I don't know off the top of my head right now. I actually haven't done one in a while. I think it's a couple $100. I think what's most important for everyone is right away get your certificate of disposition from the court, because you're going to need that for sealing or one of these certificates. And you know, they're easy. You go down, you bring your ID with you, and you pay $10 usually. And if you call an attorney without that to do some of these applications for you, they're going to tell you to go get your certificate of disposition. It goes with all of these applications. So I encourage everyone to get that at least immediately, but I don't think that the fee is anything exceptional for this application.
Okay. You said a couple $100. That's not exceptional to some people. That's exceptional to our people.
Understood.
Yeah.
And what we want to also let you guys know is please come to us, because this is a year-round thing and we have resources to help you with this. So if you do need any kind of monetary support to pay for any of these things, we are here, and that's why we're doing the work, and we can assist you in doing so. So putting that on everyone's radar as well as the other local organizers that participate in National Expungement Week. They also offer services as well. So if you know anyone who isn't in New York but has a criminal record, please reach out to us, because we can put them in contact with who their local organizers are, and they will be able to assist you for free or very nominal payment.
So David asked, does the certificate of disposition have to be dated within a certain time frame?
You can get it whenever. Try to get it as soon as possible. I've had people that contact me, and it's, you know, their conviction was 25 years ago. And I think there's been, you know, they've run into a little bit more trouble because they don't even remember what court they were convicted in. And that's like step number one, and it's not their fault. It's a very long time ago. They were probably a teenager when this happened. So try to get it in short time after. It helps to have it anyways, I think, for yourself. And David said, what's an unclassified misdemeanor? That is a specific DUI charge, is an unclassified misdemeanor. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's not an A misdemeanor. It's not a B misdemeanor. It's a UM. It can't be sealed if it's related to the DWI, like we talked about anyways.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to get really cannabis specific, because like we said, National Expungement Week is not cannabis specific. However, since we are women of color in cannabis, we thought it would be very worthwhile for the discussion to talk about cannabis. So the next couple of slides, we're really going to talk about, you know, what, not to say what you can and cannot get away with, but legally, you know, how are they looking at different quantities of marijuana? How are they going to kind of process you based on if you were stopped, if you're on the street, etc. So if you have any cannabis related questions that have not been answered, feel free to throw them in the chat. So Jason can take it away.
Sure. So just like every other crime, marijuana has different levels. There could be felonies for, you know, large scale marijuana trafficking. Most of them are misdemeanors for certain levels of marijuana possession. Sometimes a violation as well. It's up there. And, you know, I guess I'll start from the bottom, which is that for certain marijuana offenses, your first marijuana offense, you can get the marijuana ACD. It's called an MACD, and I think Patricia might have touched on it earlier, but it's essentially the exact same as an ACD, except it takes 1 year to be dismissed as opposed to 6 months for a typical ACD. and that's helpful. That will show up again if you're arrested in the future for the prosecutor to see, because they won't offer you it again. You can only get one marijuana ACD, but I know that a lot of people find that to be the result if they're possessing or using a very small amount of marijuana. They haven't been, in trouble before. They have no convictions, so that's a pretty typical outcome. And again, you have listed in here some of the penalties for up to 1 ounce, for up to 2 ounce. The police being able to stop you. It all depends on circumstances. What I can tell you generally is that when the police stop you, whether it's a traffic infraction, whether you fit, the picture of a wanted flyer, whether you're smoking a joint in the park, they're going to take your name and they're going to run your background. And that's going to kind of determine what happens to you from there. If you have an open warrant on another case, you're going to be arrested and brought down to the precinct. If you have certain convictions on your record, you may still be brought down to the precinct, even if marijuana is considered, a violation amount that you have on you, or you're eligible for what's called a DAT, which means you don't go see a judge and get arrested right away, but you're given a future court date. It really depends on what the police find when they run your background. It's kind of arbitrary and discretionary and up to them, and there's no bright line rule, unfortunately. So, yes, if you're smoking a joint in the park, without any extraordinary circumstances, odds are is they're going to walk up to you. They will stop you. They'll ask for your ID. They'll ask for your name. They won't pat you down. They shouldn't. And they'll write you a ticket, and you'll return to court in 2 or 3 months from now for your marijuana violation case, unlawful possession of marijuana, something pretty low level. So that's typically, a standard scenario that will happen. Exactly. That the second bullet point kind of talks about that you can't be arrested if it's just a violation. You'll be given what's called a DAT, and you'll have a future court date. You see this a lot with, people that hop turnstiles and other offenses kind of similar to that. Again, it will depend on your background and the check that they run on you. If you have an open warrant, you're definitely being brought down. I'll talk about this in some scenarios in a bit, but if you act up, you'll be brought down. I mean, cops are looking for a reason to arrest people for resisting arrest, for obstructing governmental administration. Those are misdemeanors. So if they say, let me see your ID, and you say, fuck off, or you say, oh, why do you need to see my ID? Or I know the law, this, that, they'll arrest you for OGA, which is obstructing governmental administration. So you kind of bite yourself there. So many people, and I get it. Look, I get it. This is nominal stuff. It's 2020. We're in New York. It's a liberal state, obviously, and I think everyone on here at least is in agreement about, this kind of conduct, but they're looking for a reason to make this into a bigger thing. And you're kind of at their mercy in these situations. And if you just comply and swallow your pride for 5 minutes, you'll get out of there with a better result than if you try to be above the law. Yeah, so in 2019, August 2019, New York did automatic expungement for those specific marijuana convictions, misdemeanors, and downward. Not a felony level marijuana conviction, but anything misdemeanor and below, you were automatically expunged. You didn't need to go to a court. You don't need to submit an application. You won't get anything in the mail saying that it happened. But it just won't be on your rap sheet anymore. It shouldn't be. And, the way you'll find that out is either you go to the clerk's office and you get your criminal history, or if you're in the unfortunate position of being arrested again and you have an open case, your attorney will be able to see your rap sheet, and you guys will both be able to look at if your marijuana conviction is still up there or not.
And do you know, is there any kind of like cutoff period? Are they doing the last, 10 years? Are they focusing on like
I actually don't, and I don't think there is. I read through it a few times. I think as far back as they have records for your marijuana conviction is as far back as they'll wipe it off. That's my understanding of it. That's what I read. when I read through it a few times. There's no cutoff, if anything. They're more inclined to get rid of people's marijuana convictions if it's from the 70s or 80s or early 90s. As long as they can locate it, as long as it's showing up on your record, my understanding is that it was automatically expunged. Okay. Yeah, so that's what we talked about in the beginning. Law enforcement versus a regular background check will depend on what they'll end up seeing. But importantly, again, with expungement, that's the only time you can say, no, this case never existed. You shouldn't have to say that because they shouldn't see it. But if you're asked, it's the one special time where they can say, have you been convicted of anything? You can say, no, I haven't been convicted of anything. It simply does not exist. It's a pretty beautiful thing.
Roxy asked, she was like, if your arrest and case was sealed, would that still automatically be expunged?
So if you were,
Just previously sealed.
So you mean like if it was sealed from like okay, so if you're saying if they're 10 years, if she had her case sealed for marijuana misdemeanor, would it be automatically expunged as well?
Right.
Yes. My understanding is yes.
Well, sorry, I guess for a little background, I was in a situation as well, caught in a park for an amount that should have been ticketed, but I was arrested and taken in. And then before even I was given a DAT, a desk appearance ticket, when I was let go. And then I was contacted by the DA before I was supposed to appear and said I qualified for the second chance program. They dismissed my arrest and they sealed everything. So I didn't even go, everything was sealed before I even started. So there was no conviction or anything. So I'm wondering, what does that mean then? Is that shown or is that expunged?
It shouldn't, and I guess I suspect that the DA meant to say that your case would be expunged as part of that program, and so I think that your case should have been automatically expunged. Okay, so yeah, I mean, these are classic, stop and search. One of the most classic situations is that you're in a car, either alone or with friends. You commit some sort of traffic infraction. You don't put your blinker on. You run a stop sign, something purely traffic related. They stop you. They approach your car, and they either claim that they smell marijuana, they smell a joint that was just smoked, they see a joint on your lap, they see a very small amount of weed in your cup holder. What happens then? So if it's just a traffic infraction, then you're given, if it's beyond a speeding ticket, if it's a criminal type traffic infraction, you're just given a ticket, a DAT, and you'll return to court. But if they see marijuana or they smell it, that gives them pretty broad rights, unfortunately. What they will do is they'll ask you to step out. They'll ask for your information, again, your name, et cetera, and then they'll actually be able to search the general areas of your vehicle. They can't go into your trunk, and they can't go into any locked compartments in your vehicle. So that's the most important part. But they can search your front seat, your back seat area, your glove box if it's unlocked, your cup holders, your middle compartment, anything else. So that's important to know. And again, I saw a lot of cases when I was a prosecutor where the cops would approach the car and claim that they smelled marijuana, and then they got there, but they didn't see anything. They didn't see a joint. They didn't see marijuana in the cup holder. What happens then? A lot of these cops are still going to search the car, and they're going to get away with it, unfortunately. And it's time and time again. There's nothing that you can do about it at that moment, or that you should try to do about it. If anything, your defense attorney, will be able to challenge certain aspects of that, because it's obviously unfair. And obviously, if they suspect the person has other contraband in their car, a gun, narcotics, whatever it is, they can always say, yeah, I smelled marijuana, but I didn't see any, but that gave me probable cause to keep searching the vehicle. And they got away with that a lot, and they still do. And I had many, many, many cases where they would coincidentally pull over someone that had an open warrant, or that was wanted for a major case, or that was just a bad person in the neighborhood that they knew to be part of a gang. And they would say, I smelled marijuana. And I'd say, where is it? And they say, well, I didn't find any. He must have just finished the joint. Okay, then what happened? Well, then I found 3 firearms in the guy's passenger seat, underneath the seat. They can get away with that for the most part, at least for an arrest. Your defense attorney will be able to challenge it, maybe successfully in court, but that will happen with a car stop.
Okay. So does anyone have any specific situations they'd like to bring to Jason's radar? If not, Jason has a few others outside of the car scenario that we just talked about.
I have a situation. I have a final certificate of disposition that was for a Martin Act offense for general business law. It's a general business law offense. So, and it's been over 10 years. It was settled in 1996. So are Martin Act offenses different, or how are they handled when it comes to being, like sealed, or there are no expungements? So
was your case prosecuted in a criminal court?
It was prosecuted in the Superior Court of New York, the Supreme Court of the state of New York, in New York County.
I probably have the same questions that you do. I had not heard of that before. I'd have to look at the certificate of disposition, and if there's a certain level, I guess, is this that your unclassified misdemeanor that's not related to a DUI? Is that what that is?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'd imagine that it's treated the same way. I can't give you a 100% answer on that. I don't know if I've ever dealt with a Martin Act or even a general business conviction before.
Okay.
But the same way that, a broken taillight is a VTL, what's called a VTL crime. It's not the penal law, it's vehicle and traffic infraction. And those are infractions, so they're different. But if your general business law violation ended up being a misdemeanor, which it seems like it was, I would think that it's treated the same way as a misdemeanor sealing that we've been talking about.
Okay.
Oh, wow, we're losing. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Jason, can you give us?
Wait, I'm sorry. I did have one question. My name is Raven. I didn't get arrested or anything, but I was stopped one time by the cops, and I had like 3 other occupants in my car, and they claimed that it was a broken taillight, and so they asked for everyone's IDs, like everyone in the car. It just didn't sit right with me. I'm not sure if it was legal. I just wanted to know if that was what they were supposed to do.
It's not necessarily legal or illegal. They can do it, and it's an arbitrary type area. That's really kind of the unfortunately vague answer, is that there's no bright line in a situation like that. These car stops are very, much a gray area, and it is not necessarily wrong that they ask for identification of everyone in there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Jason, I have one more question. That if I had a confession of judgment, is there any way to check on the status of the overall, payment of that? Like if there were a lot of people that had to pay into it, is there any way to check that? And number 2, is there any way to get the final, like, encyclopedia of your entire case so that you can review everything that ultimately happened to everyone that was involved in your case?
The first question I'd say is, again, contact the court or the clerk's office where this all took place. That's probably your best avenue for, understanding anything with your judgment or conviction or certificate of disposition. It's the court in which this all took place. Second, in terms of getting your case file, I guess for you and anyone else that's had a case before, first, your attorney may have a lot for you. You can always do a FOIL request to the court or the DA's office which prosecuted your case. There's a court file, a public court file. I can get information from cases that have nothing to do with me or any of my clients that are in the public court file. Particular to your case, you can subpoena the DA's office, and they'll release a lot of paperwork to you that they can send over outside of, you know, their own work product or their own confidential government files. So you want some, I guess, the do's and don'ts of stop and search?
Yes.
You know, the main one is really what I said before, which is that you have to comply with what they're asking, whether it sits right with you or not, whether you, you know, watched My Cousin Vinny last night and you think that you now know what the law is and you want to try to challenge them and you might do successfully. I say to be cautious and comply. I don't know if I've ever seen in my life someone talk their way out of being arrested on something when the cops were, you know, investigating something, you know, a car stop, walking up to you. You're not going to convince them otherwise. And they're going to use all your statements against you, and they're going to find a way to arrest you for, at a very minimum, obstructing governmental administration. I keep going back to that because it's such an easy way for them to get you. I had clients that, actually mostly as a prosecutor I saw, where, you know, you had a broken taillight or you had something very minimal and the cops would stop you and they'd say, let me see your ID. And the person said no. And they said, let me see your ID again. And they would say no. And they say, okay, now I'm going to arrest you on the A misdemeanor of obstructing governmental administration. And it just spirals out of control for no reason whatsoever. So my biggest do is comply with what they're asking, whether it seems legitimate or not. Let your attorney figure it out in the future. You know, kind of sucks that you have to shut up, that you have to swallow your pride, that this seems like a very small situation, and usually it is, and now you're about to be tied up in the justice system. It's not fun. I'm not saying that it's the best outcome, but you need your attorney to resolve it, I think, in court usually. So on these traffic stops, on being stopped in the park if you're smoking, if they ask for your ID, just give your ID. And look, if it's as minimal of a situation as your gut tells you it is, you're probably going to be let off with a very minimal result. Having a ticket or paying a fine on the spot, or maybe just being let go with a warning, honestly. But it's when you combat these police officers, I think is when the trouble comes. And again, everyone knows what's going on in the world right now and how kind of combative it is between law enforcement and everyday civilians, and it's just a boiling plate. So I just don't think you're going to win that battle. So that's my biggest do, is just comply.
I have a question, Jason.
What they're asking.
What about recording on a cell phone? And is my video going to be admissible in court, even if it's like a minor infraction? Because I'll just share my story. So I was driving and I literally put on my blinker, like, I guess two seconds too late for the cops that were watching me. And they pulled me over. They said, oh, like, you know, we smell marijuana. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And it was in a closed compartment in my car, you know, but I was not forthcoming with the information. It was like, step out of the car. I'm like, okay, no problem. I step out the car because I'm like super confident they're not going to find it. They searched my car for like 30 minutes. They didn't find it. And it was like, just let us know where it is. And I'm like, you're going to have to find it. I didn't say this, but in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, you're going to have to find this. So I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So maybe now total time elapses like 45 minutes. He's searching, he's opening things. And finally they found it in my like super sneaky compartment. And I thought to myself, would anything have changed if I recorded this? You know, in the end, they did find it. You know, they did find the marijuana, but you're not supposed to open my closed, you know, glove compartment. You're not supposed to, you know, so what happens, and do you recommend recording, or is that going to be seen as an escalation or?
It's a good question. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I would encourage it. Look, first off, every police officer in New York City has a body camera now. And they're instructed to turn that body camera on during any interaction with a civilian. So they should have it recorded, but obviously there's issues with that. And I've had cases when I was a prosecutor again, where they would say, my body camera, I'd say, where is it? You know, I need it for discovery. and they'd say, oh, it wasn't working that day. I tried to turn it on. It didn't work when I walked up to that person. And then I found 3 guns, in their pants. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I don't think that that's necessarily escalating the situation. I mean, look, they won't be happy about it. But I think if you're still complying and you're still being respectful, especially if you have a passenger in the car and they want to record it. And even if you told the cop, you say, look, I'm going to turn my cell phone's on right now and I'm just recording this interaction. My name is Jane Doe. Here's my ID. How are you, officer? Good evening. If you have and look, this is easy for us to say on 3 o'clock on a beautiful Saturday when we're all sitting around, to be this calm, as opposed to midnight when you think that you were profiled or you think you're being targeted and your emotions are high. It's not that easy to do what I'm saying right now. I don't know if I'd be able to do it, but in a perfect world, if you can kind of kill them with kindness, I think that would lead you in the right direction, and you can get away with more stuff. You can record the interaction. If they found it eventually after 30 or 45 minutes, you might even get a warning. So again,
I did not get a warning, by the way.
I know.
I got a ticket and they took the speed.
It's a perfect world, but if you could swallow your pride during that interaction, I think that you have to see it for what's going to be best for you 6 months or a year or 2 years later. I know that tensions are high right now, but you have to pick your battles. You have to kind of take a few deep breaths, and you have to be respectful. But yeah, I don't think recording is necessarily a bad thing right now. I really don't.
Thank you. Were there any more questions for Jason?
I have one more question.
Sure.
Thank you. Since my arrest was dismissed before arraignment and my case was sealed before ever going to do anything, what location then could I go to make sure that it is completely expunged?
Go to the main clerk's office or use that Office of Court Administration address to kind of do not the application, but just make the request for your criminal history. But what you told me, I mean, again, I don't think there's going to be any record of it, and the clerk's office would even be able to see if there's any record of your past case. I can tell you.
Okay, thank you. And that would mean, how you were saying, like, the difference of background checks, who has certain access to what. Mm-hmm. Would the higher ups then still be able to see that on there, even because it was dismissed, or not until it would be technically classified as completely expunged?
I think they'd be able to see it until it was completely expunged, but your case is unique in that it seems like my understanding from your situation is that it might have been a declined prosecution if you were never arraigned by a judge. If that's the case, I mean, you didn't have anything except for an open arrest. And that's the only thing that's going to be on your record for law enforcement to see, but there's no conviction, there's no open case that you ever had to even. I think the prosecutor might have kind of confused things for you by saying that your case would be sealed because there's no case.
I'm sorry. Gotcha.
Quick question, just kind of a follow-up. On the section where you were discussing who can see what, the government entities can see everything. However, when, say for example, if I have an item sealed, and if on a government application for a license, for like an insurance license, if they ask a question related to misdemeanors or charges of felonies, etc., do you answer those questions as if they don't exist, but the government entity can still see that you have that charge, but or how do you handle that situation?
Yeah, that's tricky. I guess two-part answer. First is if it is a government application or job or anything else, obviously I think you would want to answer as if it's still in existence and is not sealed, because they will see it. The tougher answer is the one where, I go and apply for a completely private employer, after my case is sealed. I go work for a bank, or I go apply for a bank, whatever it is. And question number 8 says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? It's a gray area. I've advised, again, I usually err on the side of caution, because I don't trust, certain background checks. I don't trust, again, a high level position if you're applying for one, or even not. I mean, nothing's to say that they can't have, some sort of private investigating company that has, a little bit more power in a background check, or they're quasi, one of their branches of their office does government work and they have a background check that's kind of extraordinary. So I usually err on the side of thinking that you want to say yes. But then, of course, you have the power either in the interview or on the questionnaire to say, but these are the specifics of that conviction. It was 12 years ago. It has been sealed. You can be vague about it. You can say it was a misdemeanor. It's been sealed and completely off my record, and you can have your sealing with you. So I would err towards that side as opposed to hiding it. But it's tough. I mean, it's tough because it gives them obviously that not reason, but idea that to not hire you. So I get the concern there, and it's arbitrary and it's tough. And people have all different experiences with applying to jobs when they have criminal records or not. So it's very, very tough. But I'd err on the side of disclosing it.
And were there any other questions?
I think I don't know if my email's up on anything, but you guys can always contact me. I'm happy to lend, any advice I can for more specific type questions you might not have right now or you might have in the future. This stuff is tricky, but, people are here for you, obviously, and, there's usually a solution, but it is tricky, and they make you go through bureaucracies. They make attorneys go through the same crap that you're going to have to go through. But it is important to at least do what you can to kind of minimize the result of your case. So the sealing, the certificates can always help.
Okay. Well,
I have a question. Hey, sorry. My question is, are any of these things available online, especially right now with COVID? Can you request the certificate of disposition, any of those things online?
Yeah. Each court is a little bit different, especially in COVID. But again, step number 1, get your certificate of disposition. That you have to go in person to do. So what you should do, I'd advise, especially right now during COVID, is call ahead of time. Just call the clerk of whatever court you were convicted in and say, are you guys open? I need my certificate. They probably are. Go down there and get it. In terms of the certificate of good conduct or relief from disabilities, which you can do without an attorney, those are available online, and get a head start because they take a while, 6 months, 9 months, a year. Those applications are up there, 3 to 5 character letters, the whole thing's online. And, the sooner the better, because you're going to be waiting in line behind everyone else that's trying to get one. It just takes a while. And then the next step, obviously, sealing, which you do need an attorney for. And the courts are open for that, for sealing applications right now, too.
That's good. Okay. Well, we are ahead of time, which I'm not complaining about. We have a question. What is the best way to go about getting the charging documents if requested by employers?
So if they want, like an indictment or a complaint against you?
Yes. Yep.
If they do, I don't know why they would or ask of that, but if they do and that's somewhere you still want to work or whatever the case may be.
Well, for like insurance insurance licensing,
mm-hmm.
and for certain positions, like if you want something in financial services, they'll ask a question.
And if they, if there's no way out of it and you needed one of these documents, I would say either contact your attorney or the public defender's office that represented you, or request a court file. Like I said before, a public court file is what you can request down at the court, kind of the same way certificate of disposition. You go down, You fill out 4 things about your case, what your name is, what the docket number was if you have it, or they can look it up, your date of birth, and you can get public stuff. And usually the public court file includes the complaint or the indictment, and a couple other files in there.
And as Jason mentioned, when we send you this PowerPoint, we'll also attach his information as well. So feel free to shoot him an email or us an email as well. Like we said, we are a resource. So if you do have to file for anything, please let us know, because like we said, we can assist you with that monetarily, because we are raising funds to do so and to be able to help you. And so is National Expungement Week as well. And as we mentioned before, if you know anyone who's not in New York, there are organizations nationwide that is doing this work. So please email us if you know of someone, whether they're in New Jersey, South Carolina, North Carolina, we can loop them in with their local organizers as well.
Yeah, I'd encourage, again, shoot me an email. You won't be bothering me, and it's almost easier because I think that it's hard to think about your questions right now. If you have any, and you might have some in the future, and I don't say that lightly or that you want to, but again, this stuff happens. So if things arise, let me know. Maybe I can kind of point in the right directions or clarify a few things. I'm always happy to look at some documents for people if they want some clarification. You know, just here to help. So definitely an email is best if you need to, and I'll happy to hop on the phone with you. I'm happy to, you know, if you're down at the clerk's office and you're running into difficulty and there's some document that you don't understand about, I'm happy to kind of guide as I can and make some clarification there.
So on behalf of Women of Color in Cannabis, thank you, Jason, for your time. I know it's like beautiful outside here in New York, well, semi-beautiful. So thank you for sharing your Saturday with us. Thank you for everyone who attended. Like I said, please look out for an email from us where we'll send you this presentation, also Jason's contact information. If you're not already following us on Instagram, I know, shameless plug, but please follow us _WOCC. We have a lot of exciting things coming in 2021. We're working on some new things to really help our community, some job-related things, some skill-building things, some special safe spaces for women. And yeah, we have a lot planned for 2021. So please be on the lookout, follow us, and we'll send you all the information. We will have this audio up as well on our YouTube. So if you've missed anything, or if you want to go back and check out some of the answers that Jason provided to some questions, we will have this audio up as well. So thank you guys once again. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Alrighty, have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Jason. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank